chose to do my persuasive speech about the death penalty. In my speech, I will be giving you 3 main points about the death penalty. My first main point will be recent facts about the death penalty. My third main point will be life with no parole versus the death penalty. And my last point will be the unethical reality of death row. Do you know where your tax money is going? In 1976, 1,488 people died on death row, were executed on death row. 55% of those were white, 35% of those were black, and 8% of those Hispanic. The state with the most executions is Texas. In the last 100 years, only 40 women have been executed according to the Huffington Post. Life in prison versus death row. In Texas, it costs $2.3 million, more than 3 times the cost of someone with life in prison without parole, according to the deathpenaltyinfo.org. A normal trial, when the death penalty is not an option, costs $100,000. If death row is in the picture, then that is $400,000 coming out of the taxpayer's pocket. It costs, on average, $740,000 for a man to live life in prison without parole versus $1.3 million if the person is on death row. According to CNN.com, police chiefs from the states that death row is a thing have stated that they feel as though the death penalty is the absolute least effective way to eliminate crime. Another poll, according to deathpenaltyinfo.org, stated that 60% of voters would rather take punishment versus the death penalty. Men on death row are housed in criminal paradise, as I'll show you. They are in maximum security prisons, they're in buildings by themselves, and they are also roomed by themselves. The statement death row is 15 years from the time of sentencing to the time of execution. However, most men end up dying before they even get to death row. 20 states have banned this for it being so expensive. So what is the point if it's extremely inconsistent throughout the United States? And everybody's paying federal taxes anyway, so we're paying for the 30 states that have death row, and Minnesota is not a state that has death row. According to MotherJones.com, lethal injection has failed many times, and people end up spending 2 hours in convulsions instead. Lethal injection is the most commonly and most ethical way to execute someone. Also, the most popular way is the electrocution chair. Every time the drug is administered, that is $1,500. In the grand scheme of things, that isn't that much, considering how much it takes to house in the trial for the men that are on death row. 144 people have been wrongfully executed. People go in with their heads shaved to keep their identity hidden. However, people are allowed to come and view the execution of prisoners, and those people are usually victims of their crimes, family members, or law enforcement. In order to be on death row, you have to have killed someone, are part of a drug cartel, or you are for treason. In conclusion, today I have given you facts about the death penalty. Therefore, you can make your own choice on whether or not you think it is humane or not, or should be a thing or not. In California, 700 people are currently on death row, and that is $2.6 million per person that is on death row. The U.S. spends millions on this, and I feel as though it is not necessary nor quite humane, and quite frankly is very outdated. Over here I will show you a picture of the execution chair, or where they are like put or laid down, and then the electric chair. People are allowed to view this, and first I believe they are sedated, and then they are given the lethal injection, and it should take 7 minutes for them to pass away. I feel as though this is not a humane way to be doing things anyway, because most people end up dying before they even get to their execution date, and that it doesn't really make sense to have taxpayers spend an extra $300,000 per person that is potentially on death row, because like I said, California has 700 people currently on death row, so they are being housed in separate places with maximum security, so then you have to pay the police officers that are in there, and then also you have to feed the criminals. Do you have any questions?
What is the remaining pictures on your slideshow?
Oh, it's just a picture of the...
And then what are the facts?
My facts were just simplified things,
I see.
because that's how you're supposed to do it.
Okay, and then the next page on here.
Life in prison versus death row, and then some basic facts that it's $400,000.
Does the state of Minnesota have death row?
No, they do not. The South is the majority of the people that have death row, and Texas is the biggest state with death row.
Is there any statistics that show that states that have the death penalty have fewer violent crimes per capita?
No, they don't. It doesn't really do anything. And people, or 60% of voters, would rather take a punishment versus the death penalty anyway. So I just feel like it's an outdated way of doing things.
So if a person killed a bunch of kids, they have the right to live?
No, they have the, I think they have the right to live in prison for the rest of their life. I just feel like the death row is extra, or it's kind of not necessary.
Because it's too expensive?
Yeah.
Or it's immoral?
It's too expensive. And it's expensive because of the court cases that go along with it. I mean, they could kill them all, that'd be fine, but it's the fact that they have to use all the
They
lawyers and
have
stuff.
to wait, 15 years before they actually execute them?
Yeah. Which
And
I
why do they have to wait 15 years? Is that in every state that has the death row, or is that just in Texas?
think it's every state, because they have to be in prison for 700 something months.
So they have 15 years to prove that they're not guilty?
Well, that too. It's a backup
Interesting.
Okay.
for it.
Very